Hey, what's up, Patreon people? Sorry we missed the episode last week. It was one of the very few times where both Jared and I were traveling at the same time.
Yeah,
I had arranged my trip with Jagus, which we'll talk about during the podcast a million years ago before I realized it was Jared's anniversary, which I probably would have turned down the trip otherwise because it's a huge pain in the ass when we're both out.
it
Uh,
was.
Jared took a road trip with Pam, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
it was fun.
And yeah, I don't know. Things are uh, things are cooking along. I think we're going to start sponsored content on the site reasonably soon. Response has been decent. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive, I guess. Hopefully, it doesn't piss anyone off too much, but I don't know. Like,
What pisses you off more, a sponsored post here and there, or a no touch arcade existing?
well, yeah, and like one thing that's like really important when I like, laid out like the details of like what is and isn't acceptable is like you get like final editorial say.
Hmm.
Um, so it'll be like I don't know. Like it's always kind of awkward. It's like maybe something we wouldn't normally cover, but like the story would still be like our take on it,
Yeah,
kind of thing. Like you can't just like send us text to post, basically.
yeah, and
So
it also, man, it drives me nuts when we post about a game just because it's like, oh, that looks cool, and we post a trailer or something, and then it's like the
no,
sponsored post du jour on like every other
I
site,
know.
and I'm like, damn, we gave them a freebie. Like I would have posted about it
It's
anyway, and you could have gave us money for that.
it's really annoying. That happens a lot these
A
days too.
lot.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just got the contracts all settled for some other stuff that we're working on. That's kind of what I was focused on this week. More details on that coming shortly. I think we'll have some really cool merch. I think that's going to be. I don't know if we've talked about that or not. Like cross-branded merch with developers and stuff like that. That might do well, might not. I don't know. Worth trying. Um,
But all,
basic.
if you need like a legal document written up, you can contact Hodap about
Yeah, I
that.
guess I'm the
He's an
guy.
expert
I
now
guess
in that
I'm.
area.
Well, I'm very good at like combining all the various free resources that exist and into one thing that's vaguely coherent that we then send off to the TouchArcade lawyer who spends 5 minutes looking at it and is like, "Yep, this is fine."
And probably charges
So,
$500.
well, yeah, but I probably saved us thousands doing that. So
Yeah,
whatever. Um, is it beer o'clock?
it is.
This podcast sponsored by Coors Light.
Yeah. It has made the
So
podcast more fun, I have to say that.
one actually funny thing about last week, if you read the site, I went to RuneFest for RuneScape, and we'll talk about that during the podcast. But for whatever reason, like when you go to these, and I don't mean this to sound like I'm complaining or bitching or anything like that, because I'm certainly not. But like when you go to these media junkets, a lot of the time, like they'll arrange like a private car for you,
Hmm.
which you would think would be really cool. Like, and it is kind of neat, like seeing the guy at the airport with your name on a sign and stuff like that is
Right.
pretty cool. But
Yeah.
a lot of cities getting to like the city center from the
Mhm.
airport or vice versa, like the car is the worst way.
Yeah.
And London is definitely in that situation because it was like really cool to have a car and everything and not need to worry about
Hmm.
because like when you especially when you fly overseas, like you land, you're kind of jet lagged, you really want to take a shower and everything. It's like you just don't want to deal with public transit a lot of time. But like there's this new thing in London called the Heathrow Express that gets you from Heathrow Airport to Paddington Station, which is like one of London's main like sub or I guess tube
Hmm.
stations, which you
Hmm.
then can just take to wherever else you want to go. And that train ride takes 15 minutes versus 2 fucking hours
Yeah.
in a car.
Oh, man.
But anyway, so a lot of time to talk to the taxi driver, and like it's always fun to talk to people outside the country about like because you always have interesting takes on like the shit that's going on in America, like we do on
Hmm.
like Brexit and stuff like that. So it's always kind of
Hmm.
amusing. Um, but I was complaining, I was like, I've been to London a bunch in my life. It's like one of my favorite cities to go to, um, because I love. I'm a huge beer guy, but I really like the like cask style beer that is very
Hmm.
big in England. That like really doesn't exist in any meaningful way outside of like it seems like the UK. Like I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, But I was like, and the sucks is like last time I was here, it's like American style IPAs and lagers are really taking over is like the new cool thing. And the
Hmm.
guy's like, yeah, dude, we're getting all these like crazy American beers now and like a lot of cheaper ones and stuff like that. Like when I go out with the boys now, I drink this, like it's just getting this new beer that's out a bunch of places. It's Coors. Uh, and I was like, are you fucking Coors Light? He's like, yeah, you know it? And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, what used to be like a beer vacation for me, like a
Yeah,
beer holiday, is now like, oh, dude, we got this new thing. It's called Coors Light. The
yeah.
bottle turns colors when it's cold. I'm just
The
like, God
special
damn it.
imported beer.
Yeah, so whatever. Um, but anyway, let's get the podcast underway. This is episode 372. I have actually a lot of news and stuff to talk about this week, so this might be one of those episodes a little late on games, even though I got a bunch downloaded and a bunch of cool shit's been coming out lately. And it's been a really good quarter for iOS games, I would say, just in a general sense.
I only want to talk about one game, so
Grim Valor?
yes.
All right, and we'll make sure we leave time for that.
Okay.
All right, well, let me start my recorder thing. Actually, make sure I have it downloaded before we.
Oh.
Yeah, I do. Okay. Um, okay. My thing's recording. Episode 372. All right. Ready?
Hmm.
All right, cool. Hey guys, what's up? You're listening to Touch Arcade Show's episode number 372, recording on Friday, October 12th, 2018 at around 5:07 p.m. Central Standard Time. Actually, I don't know if it's standard time right now. It might be daylight savings time. I
I
don't
don't
know. I
know.
don't
I
know.
don't know. It's one
I
or
don't
the
know.
other.
Yeah, we need to get rid of daylight savings time. Let's get real.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever helped farmers anyway. I actually read
Yep.
a pretty interesting argument that daylight savings time was to actually help like the gas companies and stuff sell more gas when gas lanterns were a thing.
Uh,
Which,
I don't know about that, but I have definitely heard that the whole farmers thing is just like an urban legend, more or less.
well, yeah, I mean, because like I grew up on a farm, right? So you just got up when you need to get up. It's not like the clock's changing means like, oh well, if we feed the chicken and
Yeah.
the chicken's an hour later today or whatever.
The
No, that's
sun
not how
coming up is your alarm.
that's not how it works. Anyway, if this is the first time you've listened to Touch Arcade Show, not only is it a podcast about farming and time zones and time changes, but we are also a podcast about mobile games. This basically exists as a recap of all the cool shit that's happening around the clock in the mobile gaming industry, which is hard for even us to keep up with, and it's our job. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next hour of I don't know, us talking shit. What else? What else do you do? So
Sold.
riddle me this. Do you want to start? So I've kind of got the news stories ordered in. Do you want to start with like smaller stories first or bigger stories first?
I don't care.
Well, all right. Well, I got small stories up now, so we'll just work backwards.
Okay.
So this week you posted a trailer for this upcoming game called Pedal Up, which
Yeah.
I really, really liked where this is going. So
Yeah.
the basic idea of Pedal Up, I guess we need to back up a little bit. So Trials, like the Trials games and the bazillion spin-offs that there have been on the App Store since Trial,
Yeah.
like arguably the spin-offs were even out before Trials even hit the App Store, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So if you haven't played a Trials game before, it's basically side-scrolling, kind of like dirt bike or BMX bike riding, like going up and down hills, sort of like Tiny Wings, and
Hmm.
the crux of the game is typically like how many ridiculous flips and other tricks you
And
can
like
do.
traversing crazy terrain and explosions and stuff.
Yeah, like so it's taken like there's nothing about a Trials game that is even remotely realistic, I
Not
would
really.
say. And so the difference with Pedal Up is that Pedal Up is like the severe opposite end of that.
Yeah, it's made in with the help of an actual like competitive bike trials person who's been a champion and stuff like that. And then if you've ever seen the stuff on TV where they do the things like, they ride up in a wheelie and they're bouncing on their back wheel on like a fence post and then they leap to like a car hood or,
Yeah.
do weird stuff like that and you're like, how the hell are people able to do that like on a real bike? This is like a game based on that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's way more grounded in reality and a lot of the challenges you have are based on actual like real life competitive trials courses for people on mountain bikes and stuff like that. It's a mountain bikes, not motorcycles too. So
Yeah. So I just thought that was really this was really neat. I don't know.
yeah,
It's just interesting how it seems like the arms race of how absurd trials like games have gotten is
yeah.
bananas.
Which
So
I
like,
love how over the top they are. That's great, but it's also neat to see the other side of the
yeah,
spectrum.
yeah, this is really cool. So pedal up. They're shooting for a late 2018, early 2019 iOS release with an Android release to follow.
Yeah.
So this is kind of pushing all our buttons. So I'm sure you'll see a bunch more stuff on the site. So Crush the Castle Siege Master is launching next Thursday. So this is noteworthy because if you were around for the early days of Angry Birds and you enjoyed saying, well, actually, on the internet, one of your favorite things would be posting Crush the Castle is actually the first one.
Yeah.
Angry Birds is a ripoff.
Yeah.
So do we know if this is the same developers and everything, or are they just using Crush the Castles as the name?
From what I can tell, is that Armor Games developed Crush the Castle originally as a Flash game for their own portal. So I don't know if there
But they're kind of
was.
like a publisher, though. So
They
I'm
are, but I think
curious
they
if it's
make
like
their
the
own games too.
same dudes.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I'd be surprised if it was, but
Yeah.
it's kind of cool that it's a very updated take on Crush the Castle. And what was always cool about Crush the Castle is using the trebuchet or whatever, the crazy weighted catapult medieval device. Because Angry Birds was cool slingshotting, but I feel like for as much as the games got compared to each other, they always felt a lot different because of that. Because the release mechanism in Crush the Castle was definitely had a different feel. So yeah, it looks really cool, really fancy 3D graphics and stuff like that. It's gonna be free to play, so whatever that will end up meaning. But
Yeah, I was kind of hoping when I saw this headline that like the this was going to be like a $5 or $10 game or something like that, and that's what
yeah,
would be going to make it like stand out from Angry Birds is like, hey, because the Angry Birds games have gone like real deep down the free to play rabbit hole.
yeah,
But who knows? I'm excited to play this either way. I mean, like Angry Birds has proven that this gameplay formula of launching shit to knock down other things is
yeah,
really
a lot of
fun.
fun.
So, nothing but high hopes for that.
Yeah.
If you remember Tower of Fortune, which how would you even describe that game? As like a kind of arena battler sort of
No, no,
thing.
no. That was the. It was more like a slot machine based
Oh,
battling. It looked like it was built on
oh.
a
Well,
TI 83 calculator or
that makes
whatever.
way more sense because I was, you know, the game I'm talking about, right? It's like on like a gray kind of circular arena at the top of a tower.
Only one is what
Only
you're
one.
thinking
That's
of.
exactly
That
what I was
game is
thinking
very
of.
awesome, but no, this is different.
I was like, wow, this is a real departure from the previous game. But now that you remind me what Tower of Fortune actually
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
like this actually makes a
It
ton
looks
of
pretty much in
sense.
line with their other games. They do kind of these simplistic retro takes on action RPG dungeon crawler sort of style, but then they're usually built around a weird sort of mechanic. And like the Tower of Fortune games are all slot machine based combat and stuff, and they're awesome. And this game
I guess
seems
if I
like
would
kind
have
of
read the second paragraph of this
it's
article, I
okay.
would
No,
have.
nobody reads on the internet.
Oh,
So
I read the first paragraph and watched the trailer
well, you're
in
ahead of
my
most, I guess.
defense.
But yeah, this game is I can't totally tell what like the main mechanic is. It's definitely like a fight enemies and battle and RPG mechanics and stuff like that sort of game like their others. But the main mechanic is some sort of wheel or something of options of something to do. I don't know. I kind of like the mysteriousness of not knowing exactly what the heck it is you do in this game. It makes me look forward to it more. So
Yeah. So it's really cool. I don't know. I really liked Tower of Fortune. Makes
hmm
me really miss games like King Kashing or King Cashing, which I
yeah.
still don't know all these years later how you're supposed to pronounce it. Um,
Yeah, the slot machine thing. Man, Tower of Fortune is just like a perfect little game to whip out and have some battles.
yeah.
And
Oh,
I
so
just,
speaking of slot machines, here's something that's really, really freaking weird, right? So, um, my girlfriend was like, I don't know, we were like going to dinner or something like that. She's taking forever to get ready, and I was like, well, I don't want to like get into watching something on Netflix, and like I've
uh,
already watched the guy on CNN stand in front of the one thing that got fucked up in Hurricane Michael all day, and so let's see what's going on Twitch.
Okay.
And so I was just kind of like scrolling through the games that I was actually looking for RuneScape being streamed. That was
Uh-huh.
like what I was
Uh-huh.
looking for. But before then, I found like I guess there's all sorts of people that stream like casino games on Twitch, and I was like, oh, that's
Oh
weird.
gosh, really?
Got into that and found this like old British dude who I would guess probably like in his 50s, 60s, I don't know, playing like
Uh-huh.
online slot machines,
Uh-huh.
streaming live on Twitch with all these people watching him, and dude was just like burning through cash. I mean, like
Really?
it was wild. Like it was fascinating to watch because
Uh-huh.
like so I turned out. I was like, who the fuck watched this? Is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And then the
Uh-huh.
dude like loads in 300 pounds to this online casino website, and I was like, oh damn, like this
Yeah.
guy's like serious about this. And then he was playing the pound slot machine. So I'm saying like British pounds, which is like $1.35 or
Dollar
something like
game,
that.
dollar a pull or whatever.
But he was playing max lines,
Oh,
so it was
jeez.
like almost like $25 a pull.
Oh my god.
And I was glued to this. I was like, this is insane. I have
Yeah.
never seen someone like high roll a slot machine like this before.
Huh.
Because like the swings when you're playing that high
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
bananas. Because he would like,
Yeah.
he went down from like 300 down to like 150, and then won a huge pot, was back up to like 320 something. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It was exciting. Like, as weird as that is to say.
Huh.
So Twitch casino games, check it out. So he posted about Idle Skies, which is a kind of a aviation centric clicker, which
Yeah.
I really dig this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like clickers,
Mhm.
even though I realize all I'm doing is playing a spreadsheet. That's
Yeah.
fine. But I like the kind of like new sort of way that they're taking this. Like instead of building an army or
Mhm.
fighting off zombies or the bazillion other things that has happened in clickers, like you're
Mhm.
actively like researching different like spacecraft and planes and stuff like that. Like what is the goal of this though? Is it like to get
Well, I think it goes over six distinct areas of the history of aviation. So like whatever, like wooden planes and then metal planes and then helicopters and then spacecraft and whatever
Mhm.
whatever they may be. But I think each era you're sort of like researching and unlocking different types of aircraft. And then when you kind of max all those out, you move up to the next era with like more advanced planes and stuff. And then with most clickers, once you get the whole shebang unlocked and upgraded, you can like prestige and start over or whatever. So it's very much just a normal clicker, but its kind of theme is aviation history, and
Yeah.
it's actually grounded in actual factual history stuff. So
It seems really
that's
like
pretty cool.
what really like tickled me about this is that I really enjoy games like Civilization where like you're like feels like you're like going like progressing through the
Yeah,
ages basically,
yeah,
and this is kind
yeah,
of like giving me that same kind of vibe of
yeah.
like progressing through aviation history through from like the Wright brothers plane up to like rockets and stuff, which
Yeah. Well, it makes me wonder too is like what other areas of education could you teach children via clicker?
yeah.
Like, if you had
Well,
different clicker games based on different subjects, would they start doing well on tests?
I
Or
wonder how much of this is going to be like that historically accurate though, because like
I don't know. I know they're doing their best that they can to actually have factoids and stuff like that are correct. In the forum thread, there's people that are beta testing it because there's a public link to test this right now if you wanted to check it out. It they've already come across a few factoids that aren't like that had either misspelled or not quite factually correct
hmm,
or whatever. So I guess that's why you beta test things. But I think their intentions are sincere that they want this to be, educational
yeah.
in at least a small sense.
Yeah. I love that. So after I played the trailer for on the video version of the podcast, one of the recommended videos after the Idle Skies trailer is another top 10 worst video game consoles list, and it's an Ouya in the thumbnail.
Oh, of course.
Womp womp. Um, so I don't like. So the next story is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, so Power Rangers Legacy Wars has been oddly popular, I would say. Like it's
So we are told.
well, I mean, like it certainly has a player base. Like here's the problem with mobile, right? Is that if you've got a game that like 15 million people are playing, like if in any other industry, if you're like, oh yeah, I've got a business that 15 million people are interacting with, you'd be like, holy shit, dude, that is insane. Like,
Yeah.
are you guys listed on this on like the New York Stock Exchange? Because I want to buy stock in your company because that sounds crazy. But like in mobile, when you're like, I don't know, that's 15 million. That's
It's decent.
not that. Yeah, it's okay. So Power Rangers Legacy Wars is by no means anywhere near like Contest of Champions and what's the other one that's really big?
Injustice.
Injustice.
I wouldn't think so.
But it still has a big following, right?
Yeah.
And they're getting kind of weird with additional content because when you have like so like Injustice and Contest Champions are basically Marvel versus DC kind of thing, and like they have a goddamn infinite amount of new dudes they can add to those games between
Yeah.
additional heroes. Like each hero in the Marvel or DC universe will also have like a bazillion different outfits and like
And it's like at least once a week, if not more, that they're adding new characters to like Contest and Champions.
yeah. So Power Rangers Legacy Wars plays really similar in that it's kind of like another one of those swipe based character collecty upgradey kind of thingers. The problem is like Power Rangers universe does not have that many characters in it. Basically
Yeah.
got like the Power Rangers and a bunch of very generic bad guys and the Power Rangers.
Uh-huh.
So they're getting kind of weird to keep adding content, I guess. And they added Ryu from Street Fighter recently, which I guess is now canon that the Power Rangers universe exists in the same world as the Street Fighter universe, which is explained in this short film that was released. So if you want to find the video we're talking about, just go to YouTube and search for Power Rangers Legacy Wars Street Fighter Showdown or any variety of that. I'm sure it'll be the first thing that comes up. So it's about 8 minutes long. Sort of absurd. Apparently, like the premise, basically, I mean, sort of is putting lightly. So the premise is Rita Repulsa, the bad guy in, or I guess bad girl in Power Rangers, has teamed up with M. Bison, who I guess is brought back to life. I didn't realize he was dead. I don't know if that's a part of this or how that all
Stranger things have happened.
works out. I don't know. But so they're in cahoots now. Apparently, the only person that can beat M. Bison is Street Fighter's Ryu. Chun-Li is also featured in the video, oddly enough. And so they're like fighting bad guys or Power Rangers or evil Power Rangers or something. And they get like warped off to some mysterious dojo. And this sounds dumb, but this is what happens. The Green Ranger, the original one, the guy the Jason David Frank, the guy who played Tommy, is there. He explains that M. Bison is helping Rita Repulsa, but he only has one power coin. So even though Chun-Li is also hanging around and like ready to fight and everything, like only one of them can be turned into a Power Ranger.
Sorry, you can't play.
which I am sure has nothing to do with licensing costs or anything like that, and is actually like a narrative decision they made in this short movie / crossover / whatever the hell is happening with this. So yeah, it's a thing that now exists in this universe, this cursed hell world we're living in. Street Fighter and Power Rangers is now together.
Yeah.
Oh shit! What else can go wrong in 2018? So I thought it was kind of funny. I looked up fanfiction.net and I was like, surely someone has come up with this before. And there is a story, like it's not specifically related to Street Fighter, but there is a very, very, very in-depth fanfic posted by Fallen Gamer 13 back in 2012 about Ryu joining the Power Rangers.
Wow.
So if you want to read that, let me know how it is.
I bet they just ripped this off wholesale for their little movie.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're like, I don't know, we got nothing. What should we do? I don't know. Check fanfiction.net. Anyone got any good Power Rangers vampire crossovers? All right, perfect. Throw Street Fighter in
Yes.
there. Yeah, I don't know.
Uh,
This is something though.
well, that's cool.
So yeah, I what else is possible now that the Power Rangers universe exists in the Street Fighter universe? I don't
Mortal Kombat.
I don't even well, no, but Mortal Kombat has its own swipe based.
Can we just mash them all together?
All universe exists together.
Yeah.
Kind of like what they're doing with that what's the Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse? Have you seen the
Spider-Verse.
trailer for
Yeah,
that?
I want to see that.
Um
That's really
yeah,
cool.
seems cool. Oh, did you see Venom yet, by the way?
Uh-uh.
It was decent.
Hmm.
Um I don't know. The so what I do with movies now, or movies that I'm interested in seeing, is like as soon as I hear someone grumping about them, like I just mute that word on all things,
Mm-hmm,
and I'm just like, you know what, I'll just go see it when I have time, and I'll probably
mm-hmm.
enjoy it. That was the
Right.
case with Venom.
Yeah.
Everyone on the internet was like, "Oh my god, this is." I would rather get hit by a bus than see this movie. It's going to be so terrible based on the trailer where I guess they mispronounce symbiote, which is how I've always said it.
How do you say it?
I don't know. I guess symbiote.
Oh,
I don't
I've
know.
always said symbiote too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not like, listen, Venom didn't change my life. It's not
Mhm.
like I walked out of the movie theater and was like, holy shit, this rewrites what it means to make a movie.
Yeah.
But I was satisfied with my $6 I spent and enjoyed watching it.
All
So
that matters.
there's your quick review of Venom. Um, where do we go from there? Assassin's Creed Rebellion. It's launching on November 21st. The thing is, like, we don't really know how free to play this is going to be, right? Like, because it's been soft launched forever, but like,
Yeah.
usually when games are soft launched forever, that's not a great sign.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to tell if they're going to make any major changes from the soft launch, but from what I remember, because it soft launched in July of last year, I think it's a while ago. Um, it's kind of like the other games where your time is just going to be spent trying to collect that character through like a gotcha loot box thing. So, you know what I mean? You know how that
Yeah.
goes. It's like, yeah, you can be patient, just wait for the characters you want, or you can just
Or you
take the
can
ones that you get
spend
if
that
you don't
money.
really care, or yeah, if you really have to have Ezio, then you're gonna like, spend money on whatever. So, I think it'll end up being pretty fair. It's kind of like a neat take on. It's like a Fallout Shelter sort of game. It's made by the same company that made Fallout Shelter, and I can't remember if this was the game that came under fire for being accused of actually ripping the code
No, no, no. That
from.
was the Westworld game.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, anyway, this same company is making another Fallout Shelter sort of game, but
Oh, is
with
it the same
Assassin's
exact
Creed.
company?
Yeah,
Oh,
and so what I can't think of their name right now, but yeah, they you like build out rooms in your little fortress or whatever, and then you collect different assassins, and then you can train them and upgrade them, and then take them into battles and all that crap. So I don't know. It seems like it's cool. The people that played this, I didn't play soft launch, but the people that have all really enjoyed it. But again, that could be because things were like turned on easy mode for the early goings
yeah.
or something like that. So we'll see. I don't know. I feel like I have a gut feeling they'll do it right, and it'll be just sort of your normal, more fair kind of gotcha, but not like super gross energy crap thing.
Totally, totally not into that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I, I, I don't know who is. I guess if you are, cool, but not me.
Yeah.
Um, so related videos for the Assassin's Creed Rebellion pre-launch trailer, the
Yeah.
nightmare videos of children's YouTube.
Okay.
I feel like the YouTube algorithm needs some work.
YouTube recommendations are so good.
Um, so if you were worried that Civ 6 is not going to get all the different content that the PC version is getting, specifically the massive Rise and Fall expansion, guess what? You're wrong. Because it was confirmed on Reddit that the huge expansion is coming to iOS. I don't know if they mentioned when.
I don't think that they know yet.
Yeah. Expected to cost $30 when it launches is the current thinking.
Oh my God, that's too much money for a mobile game.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Dude, Civ 6, amazing game, and
It's crazy that that whole game is now, since it became universal, you can play it on iPad and iPhone.
shockingly
It runs
playable.
reasonably well.
Shockingly playable on the iPhone.
Yeah,
And it all has to do
it's
with like how
crazy.
much you can like zoom in and out.
Hmm.
Like I find like so if you haven't played Civ 6 yet, you should just download the demo. Like I don't care what you play it on, just download the well, so I guess there is no demo. You download Civ 6 and then you can play what amounts to the game's tutorial completely for free. And you can see how the controls work. But so it's kind of like a map of a hex grid of the whole world, and on the iPhone you just need to like do a bit more zooming in and zooming out versus on the iPad there's a lot less of that, and then, more just like tapping and panning around the map. But super playable on the iPhone, shockingly so.
Believe
It
it.
does turn your iPhone into hand warmer mode though,
Right.
so but I mean I guess you're playing a full-fledged reasonably recent PC game on your phone, so
It's nuts.
what do you kind of really expect? This is kind of a weird thing that we found out this week is Reign's Game of Thrones. If you're playing on an iPhone 10 or newer device that has the face tracking sensor bar thing,
Mhm.
it actually integrates that into the game. So a big part of like iOS 12 was fleshing out a lot of that functionality a bit more to open it up to developers, and the Reign's Game of Thrones people are using that to kind of like give you it's not going to be like this massive like spoiler that gives you a huge advantage in the game, but like if a character doesn't trust you, or wait, let me actually read verbatim what they said. Characters who trust your motives will lock their gaze directly on you even as you tilt your device. The suspicious will look away. So like
That
it
sounds creepy.
gives you kind of like a I don't know. I'm not super sure how much of a impact this is going to make on the actual game itself,
Right.
but it's kind of neat that like they're implementing these like very subtle things that like it's actually in the test flight build that I have now, and like didn't even really
Mhm.
realize it was a thing
Yeah.
until it was pointed out, and I went through and played it again. I was like, oh holy shit, yeah, like it does watch you when you play on the phone. That's pretty cool.
That's
So
an interesting idea.
yeah, so we'll see. I don't know, like I, it's cool to see. I'm curious what else is going to come out that's going to kind of use these things in any sort of kind of interesting way, I
I feel
guess.
like dating sims could really benefit from eye locked gaze.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Had a full boyfriend and eye locked with pigeons
Yes. So Reigns Game of Thrones is coming out on October 18th, which
next
is
week.
next week. Yeah, so super
Pretty
stoked for this. Like I'm still kind of bummed that we have to wait so long for the next season of Game of Thrones. Like we're not talking Game of Thrones until late next year, I think.
Well, I don't watch it, so I guess that gives me time to start watching it.
Yeah, you have plenty of time. That shows are really good. You should
So
get on the
everyone
bus.
says.
You should get on the
Yeah.
bus because like everyone is going to be talking about the final season because there's very few episodes. They're all going to be super long, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why anyone
It's
would.
on my list of things to do, all right.
You know what I
I'll keep
recently
going now.
actually watched the entirety of
Hmm.
is the 100. Are you familiar with this at all?
No.
So the premise of 100 is humanity. Well, the Earth is ruined from like a nuclear fallout kind of thing.
Okay.
At the time that this happened, there were all these like I think there's 13 different space stations orbiting the Earth at the time. So they kind of like all eventually like connect to each other to create one like superstation called the Ark, where like that's just like where humans now exist is on the space station. First episode they reveal that like their life support systems are fucked up and like can't support the amount of people that are living there anymore. So they're like, all right, well, how do we like cull the population back to something that like the existing oxygen generators and stuff like that can
Uh-huh.
uh, support. So they send 100 prisoners who are all sexy teenagers down because it's a CW show. Spoilers.
Oh, okay.
Down to planet Earth. 5 seasons. The first season, I was like, God damn, this is like the dumbest thing ever. Why am I watching this? But by like the fifth season, I was like so hooked. It's unbelievable. So
That's that happened to me with Pretty Little Liars.
I haven't seen
Damn,
that.
got me sucked into that, and it's like the worst like tween show
I haven't
ever.
seen that. Well, what's interesting about the 100 is it swerves hard from the
uh,
the whole like tween show. Like that kind of
uh,
stops like halfway through season two, which was like pretty unexpected.
I like the premise a lot.
Yeah, like because season one is a lot like. Have you seen the movie City of Ember ever, or read the
Mm,
book or anything?
mm,
So
mm,
it's kind of similar in that it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic sort of like Fallout universe.
mhm.
But City of Ember is very much like a kid's book, or I guess like young adult book, and the movie follows a very similar vibe, which always kind of bummed me out because like the universe is so cool that I always wish like someone would like take a more critical kind of adult eye to expanding that instead
Yeah,
of it being like a kids drama more or less.
yeah.
So I don't know.
Hmm.
100, check it out if you're into. I think if you like Battlestar Galactica or Lost or stuff like that, you probably really like the 100 if you give it a chance. So, this is my plug for the TV show of the week.
Mobile games and TV show reviews right here.
Well,
We are your
it
source.
segues perfectly into my next story, which is kind of a bummer because Minecraft for the Apple TV has been discontinued, which potentially signals the end of Apple TV as a any kind of serious gaming platform, is which it never kind of really was in any meaningful way. Um, which I don't know.
My leg's cramping, so I'm standing.
Just work
Sorry.
cramp out. Um, so I don't know. Like this really bums me out because you remember, and I'm sure if we went back to previous
I
episodes of the
remember. I
podcast,
don't
like,
want to revisit it.
but man, think of like how
Bad
many
memories.
years we talked about like what a game changer it could be if Apple
Yeah.
allowed developers to make third-party apps and games for the Apple TV.
No, literally years we talked about it, and literally every WWDC was like, "Oh, they're gonna announce it this time," and then they wouldn't, and it'd
Yeah,
be like, "Oh," and
yeah,
then finally they do, and it sounds like it's pretty much going to be everything we'd ever wanted, an Apple TV with apps, and a lot of the iOS stuff that's already out there can be pretty easily ported over, so
yeah.
you're going to have like a huge library right out the gate,
And a bunch of game
and
developers are like, of course we're supporting Apple TV.
yeah.
Like, why wouldn't we be there? This is going to be the next fucking greatest thing.
I really
Uh,
think that the controller situation is what sunk this
hmm
because they required the Siri remote to be the only thing you need to play every game they release for it, which just doesn't make sense
Well,
for a lot of games. And,
also, a lot of people have been like pretty loose-lipped on that after the Apple TV third-party App Store bombed so hard, and saying like that was a like 11th hour, 59 minutes and 59 seconds decision.
dude, if they really had wanted to make something of this, they would have made their own controller and bundled it with it. And I think they would have got a lot more traction. Maybe not like scaring away Sony or Microsoft, but like, it would have been a lot more practical for the people that already were going to buy an Apple TV or were ready to upgrade theirs for some reason. And, apps and games and stuff, and having a lot of them be truly universal. So if you owned them on iPhone already, you had the Apple TV version. Um, just having that controller in your hands and accessible and work easily with Apple TV would have been huge instead of being like, well, you can use one button on the Siri remote and make it work that way, or you can go out and find some third party controller that's expensive and made like shit. And so, yeah, if you want real controls, go do that instead of just taking a hold of the situation themselves and
Yeah.
being like, look, we can make a bomb ass
Well,
controller
I
for
mean,
our own little
even
box.
they could have also partnered with like SteelSeries
Yeah,
to include the
that would have
the
been fine
Stratus or
too.
Nimbus or whatever the controller of the they were pushing at the time was. I mean, like what really seemed as like the biggest lost opportunity of the original Apple TV was like, remember, I don't remember the storage size. It was either like 32 gigs or like 64 gigs
64, I
or
think. Yeah.
maybe 64 and 128. I don't remember,
No,
but
I
it
think
was
it's
like
32 and 64.
but it was like it was completely confusing to anyone as to
Yeah.
like what this space actually meant because a big
Right.
part of the Apple TV SDK was apps can be a maximum of I want to say like 100 megabytes or it was
200
low.
maybe. It was a pretty low. Yeah, I
And,
remember.
and and they were pushing this whole like all right, well we're building this like cloud infrastructure to stream the
Yeah.
actual like larger graphical assets and stuff like down to the Apple TV. So
Yeah.
because they didn't want like they wanted the experience to be instant. So if you downloaded
Yeah.
something on the Apple TV App Store, like they wanted you to be able to launch it right away, not be like, all right, well, this is going to be installing for the next 20 minutes. Which, like, I get it. Like from a UX standpoint, like that is really good.
Hmm.
Problem with that is like it just created like all these weird situations. I mean, because like for us, I was like, all right, well, like I guess we got to go like whole hog into Apple TV stuff. So I guess I'll get the
Yeah.
64 gig one. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, but I like so and throughout the like as I think I picked up like a refurb or something like that for my
Yeah.
bedroom, like the 32 gig one, and loaded a bunch of shit on it and never hit the storage cap. Don't even know how
No.
much stuff's on there. Like it's completely transparent to me as a user. So
Well, if I remember right, it was only a $50 difference between the two, so it was sort of like, well, double the storage for an extra $50. Like, why wouldn't you?
yeah,
But I really think, yeah, I've never even come close to. Yeah, I've tried downloading tons of games and never even come close to like filling that thing up. And so, what I really think they should have done is have like a way cheaper base model that didn't come with a controller and came with like 16 gigs of memory
hmm
or something, just that you more than you'd even need anyway, but just enough for somebody that's like, yeah, I want some apps. I don't really care about games, whatever. And then have
right. I'm
like a
gonna use
gamer
this to watch
edition.
Netflix. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have a gamer edition that's like $100 more that comes with the controller and comes with whatever,
Right.
64 gigs
Exactly.
or whatever, and have that be like, yeah, this is like a little mini console if you want it to be.
Right.
And it would have just been, I think it would have gone over so much better.
Yeah. I mean, like, imagine a bundle that's like, so say, I don't remember what the launch pricing was, but say like the kind of like, I just want to watch Netflix tier version was like $100,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like the I want to play games version is like 175, 200, something like that.
Well,
I
it sort
feel
of
like,
seems like it seems like their problem with the HomePod, which is like a really great sounding, smart speaker like Alexa, but it's way more expensive than anything else out there,
yeah,
pretty much. And so, if they would have had an Apple TV, I mean, you can get a Chromecast for $30. It does like a lot of the same stuff that an Apple TV does.
yeah,
So
and you can
why
get
would you for Fire Stick or whatever?
the better one. Like, well, so we're an Alexa household, not a.
Oh, okay.
I just said the bad word.
Uh,
Um,
oh,
we're a Amazon smart speaker household,
I didn't even think
um,
about that. So sorry.
and the better Amazon smart speaker assistant lady
Yeah.
costs like I bought just refurbs. I mean,
Mhm.
they work just as good as a new one. They're $60 a piece,
Yeah.
and they sound amazing, like shockingly good.
Yeah.
I don't know how they compare to the HomePod, but the HomePod's like $300.
I just think even at $100, if they had a way less fancy HomePod that was like a Siri speaker, that they would be in a lot better position. Then the people that want the super nice sounding speakers can buy the more expensive one or whatever. I think they could have done the same thing with Apple TV, where it's like, here's the super basic model
Right.
that's like $100 or even sub $100 to try and compete with things like the Fire Stick, and then here's like the $250 better with a controller and with all this stuff bundled because you're serious and you want to do gaming on this thing or whatever.
Yeah,
So for whatever reason, it's really sad that Minecraft of all games, like the most popular game ever, can't make it on the Apple TV. I mean, that's kind of a sad state of affairs. And it's really sad because I see a lot of people in our community that are very hardcore Apple TV people, and every single time a game comes out, they're like, what about an Apple TV
yeah.
version? And the developers always have to be like, well, I don't know, there's not really
6
demand.
people downloaded the last one I
Yeah,
did,
like
so
it's really kind of sad because they want to be able to do stuff like that, and a lot of developers still do release stuff on the Apple TV just because it's easy enough to do. I think in a lot of cases, but like the market's not there, so I don't know. I
God.
feel like it was just such
But
a
it,
big
like seriously, it is insane. Like, so I wish that we had the scratch to pay the like, so like a lot of like NPR podcasts and stuff have like the full transcripts that you can search and stuff like that, like the text transcripts. So we could search to figure out like which episodes we talked about, of the many episodes of this podcast that we talked about the potential that Apple TV gaming could possibly have. Because I remember how excited we were. It was like, dude, this is gonna change everything when it comes out. Like, this is gonna be crazy. Um,
And my dog or yours?
that's my dog, my new dog. Um,
Okay.
so the lost my train of thought. So, oh yeah, so because it looks like if there is no reality that existed, like if I could have sent a message back in time now to Jared and Eli recording, talking about the potential of Apple TV, where I would be like, yeah, I don't know, it came out totally fucking bombed to the point that like Minecraft was like, fuck it, we're out. Right? Like there's like imagine
You're like, I don't believe you, future me.
imagine that though. I mean like it would be just completely I'd be like there's no reality that exists
I mean,
where
if you're a hardcore mobile gamer, you buy this thing, the second you plug it in, you own like a lot of games already.
it's
You know what
true.
I mean? It
But
comes
there
built in with the games you already have.
but it's like the shittiest versions of those games.
Yeah, but some of them are good on Apple
Yeah,
TV.
that's
They just
true.
needed a controller. They needed a bundle controller. I really think that was the number one keystone that made it all fall
It's
apart.
true. I just this is baffling on a level that I don't even know. Like how did this go so wrong?
I don't know.
I just and the fact that the Apple TV has always been so expensive has also been super baffling to me because like worst I feel like the reason that that Amazon and Google sell their like Fire Sticks and Chromecast and stuff are so cheap because like there's just another way for you to buy content from those different people. Like and Apple's no different. Like if the Apple TV was like free with $100 of iTunes credit or whatever, like
Yeah.
you just spend that on movies or
Yeah.
TV shows or apps or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's not like anyone's gonna get an Apple TV and then be like, well, I'm not gonna use this for anything or interact with any of the Apple ecosystem at all. Like,
Well, I think they're sometimes too hardwired to the fact that they're hardware focused or whatever. And they're like, we make devices and make money on those, and we make the best devices. When in reality, like so much of their revenue comes from selling content, either apps or music or movies or whatever. And they're always just like, yeah, it's a nice business, but lean into that a little more.
yeah, I don't know. It's the super, super, super disappointing. And I guess if you're a hardcore enough Touch Arcade show fan that you would know what episodes we were talking about, how excited we were about the Apple TV podcast at toucharcade.com or actually Eli at toucharcade.com or whatever, however you want to contact me.
Yeah.
I tried looking for the episodes and just like, I don't know, like the show notes are never exhaustive enough for all the shit we talk about.
Yeah.
And
It's
God,
probably the episode before WWC for like 5 years in a row.
yeah, probably. We're like, oh my God, they're finally going to add apps to the Apple TV. Well, I mean, like, I specifically remember, multiple GDCs where we like bullshit with developers and we're like, I don't know, maybe this is going to be the year that like they're going to do apps on the Apple TV and like, holy shit, it's going to be another like renaissance of.
We've had very connected people all but bet their life.
Oh,
They
yeah.
bet their mother's life that it was happening, and then it wouldn't happen, and
Yeah.
it was like, what?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And now that you mentioned
And it
that, I
happened,
remember-
and now here we are.
yeah, holy shit. I can't believe that, but we're living in an era where never mind.
I need another beer.
So, probably the biggest game news of the week came just randomly on Twitter, as game
Yeah.
news often does.
Yeah.
Stardew Valley is coming to iOS, and it's coming
Yeah.
soon, October 24th. Pre-orders
So-
pre-orders now live on the App Store. It's gonna be $8,
Oh my gosh, $8.
which
That's like 8 cents an hour.
less than that. Jesus.
Yeah.
So you've never played Stardew Valley before. God, I don't even know how you describe this. It's like if you took Animal Crossing but removed the real world kind of clock to it and added tons of shit to do
Yeah.
on top of Animal Crossing.
I'd say it's probably more similar to Harvest Moon. It
yeah.
has an Animal Crossing vibe to it, but I feel like the actual mechanics and what you're doing and starting a farm and bringing it back to life and trying to become profitable. What I think they did that's really cool with it is add a lot of like whimsy with the characters and the different storylines and stuff that you can do. And like, there's a whole dungeon crawling dungeon you can go in and fight monsters and collect loot. And it just like pushes all of those sorts of buttons if you like to collect things and build things. And it's just charming and amazing. And I heard it for years how great this game was. And it wasn't until the Switch version that I lost almost 200 hours to it. So
Oh yeah. It's
having it on iPhone. It's weird because this announcement was a complete surprise and also not a surprise at all.
yeah,
Because you've thought forever since day one that this would be a perfect game for mobile, and they've never really said no, but they've never really said yes. And so the fact that it's coming, not a surprise, but it's also I wasn't expecting it to just be this sudden and also be like coming out so soon and all that.
yeah. So the original hesitation that I had with this was I feel like it felt like inevitable the controls were going to be shitty.
Yeah.
Because Stardew Valley was originally released on the PC, I don't know, years ago. So it was developed for keyboard and mouse in mind. And I've diddled around with it on the PC, but I didn't get like super into it because it was like, I don't know, like it takes a certain game for me to be like, all right, I'm going to sit in my basement away from everything else that's going on in my house and, do this. So when it came out on the Switch, like that's when I really, really, really got into it. But the controls on the Switch were not great compared to like just being able to use like keyboard shortcuts to like
Yeah.
switch tools and like
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff like that. So there's like a lot of like kind of like I don't want to say clunky, but like not as good
It's
elements.
weird because the Switch, I agree, like their control system they came up with, especially for like UI and menu interfacing and stuff, was like really clunky. But you play it so much, it becomes like second
Yeah,
nature.
it
So
does.
you're doing it all pretty quickly once you learn how. And I always thought that was kind of fascinating. It's actually not a great control scheme, but it works well just because you get used to it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think at least on mobile, I think doing a lot of stuff will be easier just because it's a touch screen and you can just touch things very simply instead of like navigating to them with an analog stick or whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot more similar to trying to do stuff like with a mouse, I would think.
Yeah,
Moving
so
around and stuff, I think, is better with a controller and buttons, and I think it'll probably be tap to move,
yeah, it
which
is.
I'm
Well,
not.
so yeah, that was the next thing I was going to get to is that like so there's a feature on the App Store today stuff today where they talk about a very very vague kind of mention of how the controls work, and it seems like it's got a tap to move system, and so your guy automatically like avoids obstacles and stuff like that, and
Doesn't surprise me.
it automatically selects the correct tool for like the tile that you're tapping on.
Oh, really?
So that was kind of like a big thing in the Switch, like why it was so annoying because like I think on the PC you can just like I don't remember if it was like number keys or function keys or like whatever. It was very easy to switch between like your different tools and stuff as opposed to on the Switch you had to cycle through your menu bar using the shoulder buttons,
I
right?
think so. Yeah, if I remember right.
And like
Uh,
so if you came up to a tree, you had to like maybe hit the right trigger button like 6 times to like tab over to your
but you
axe
also
to
had
equip
to
your
have shit
axe.
sorted out in like your hotbar too, correctly.
Yeah,
Which was could be kind of a pain in the ass. But it was sort of annoying when you'd be like, oh, you're surrounded by bushes and rocks and trees, and you want to get rid of all of them, and each one takes a different tool, and so you're constantly just switching back and forth between tools when all you want to do, your main goal is to just clear cut the area,
yeah.
and it just seemed like it made it harder than it needed to be. So the auto switching, I think, is actually pretty cool.
So we'll see. I don't know. Like if nothing else, like this what makes me really curious too is like there's a big like combat component to this game too, and that like you can
Yeah,
go down in the mines and like fight monsters and stuff, and like
yeah.
that's really hardcore on the Switch. Like it is difficult to get, and it just seems like one of these things. Like I don't know how they're gonna do that tap to move and
Hmm.
all that stuff. So,
I don't know. I
but
guess I could see it working.
I
Tap
mean,
a monster and auto attack or
I
something, but
guess, but you like this. So I don't mean to dissuade anyone from the game because like the cool thing about Stardew Valley is it's very much one of those games where it's like the goal of the game is whatever you decide you want to
right.
focus on. Like
Yeah.
if you want to make like the most badass farm imaginable that just makes tons of money and
Hmm.
yeah, and min max that, like you can do it. Like that's a completely acceptable goal, and the game will more than happily allow you to do that. If you want to like make the a farm that looks the coolest and but doesn't make a lot of money, like that's like you don't need a lot of cash to play
You
the game
want
and
to
have fun.
romance everyone in village and marry somebody.
Yeah, or you want to
Yeah, you
like
just do so many crazy different things.
yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can do in this game that doesn't really require like the fast controls and stuff. And interestingly enough, like I also seen mention that if you have a PC save game, you can import it into the iOS version using like that iTunes document sharing stuff. But it kind of sucks you can't do that with the Switch. Like I wish there was. What would really, really push me over the edge of getting super excited for this is if like there's just like some like Stardew Valley login kind of thing where like I could just like
Yeah.
imagine if you just have the same save game across like
Yeah,
Switch, PC, and mobile. And it's just like whatever you feel like playing at the time
that would be really nice.
is what you do. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Super excited for that. It's coming really soon. I think it's a very, very safe $8 to spend.
Yeah.
Um,
They'll figure it out. And it's awesome that this game is going to see such a massive audience
yeah.
now that's probably never heard of it. Even as popular as the Switch has been, this is the kind of game that could appeal to like, the mom, not real gamers or whatever out there, super casual type people, that still has like a lot of depth to it that appeals to like gamers or whatever.
Right.
So,
Right. Exactly.
I feel like exposing this to just the billions of people that have smartphones is pretty awesome.
Well, billions of people have smartphones that will actually spend money on something is
Yeah.
something else. So probably the biggest news of the week, Fortnite's now available for all Android devices. It's a thing.
Cool.
Fortnite now available because previously it was only on the Galaxy S9. I think.
Sure.
I don't know. Like top tier Android hardware, basically, was the only thing it was, which I'm sure was like half promotional and half them being like, well,
Yeah.
like let's just release on the best thing because like even the game's not really super optimized for Android yet, but it'll run really well because this is like the top tier hardware.
Right.
So interestingly enough, the specs to play it are reasonably low. Like if you've got a Android phone that you got in like the last like I don't know a couple of years, like should work fine, which is surprising. I mean, I'm sure it probably dynamically turns the detail down or whatever, but
Weirdly enough, this hasn't stopped people from asking for Android codes in our Discord chat.
yeah, it's the weirdest fucking. You just play the game now, but our Discord still has tons of people that are like,
I think my
Code?
dog's hearing your dog bark because my dog's barking now. Is that even possible?
yeah, it's definitely barking.
They're talking to each other.
All right, so do you want to talk about the new iPad rumors or RuneScape?
Let's get your RuneScape spiel out of the way.
All right, so cracking my knuckles even though they don't make noise, which I guess is probably a good thing. So last weekend I was invited by Jagex out to the British countryside, Farnborough specifically, which really, really, really cool venue and hotel and everything else. Like it was, so the hotel that they had me staying, well, me and like all the influencer types and everyone else, like the Jagex staff and stuff, are staying. It's like boutique hotel that overlooked this small airport, which I guess was like primarily used for private jets and stuff. And like all the rooms face the airport, so it was like super cool to just like chill in your room and be like, oh, that's a neat Cessna taking off and stuff. And they had this like pretty cool like outdoor kind of like bar cafe area where you could also sit and watch it, and like shockingly loud how well, like, so inside they had just bananas insulation because like I said, like when I checked into the hotel room, I was watching a lot of planes take off, and I was like, "This is really, really cool. Just sit here and watch these planes take off so close."
It's just silent.
Yeah, completely silent. Well, like a little bit of rumble, like like normal like plane taking off overhead kind of thing that you hear just like in the suburbs near an airport. But then like I went outside and chilled out for a while, and I was like, "Holy shit! I cannot believe how loud these planes are." But anyway. So RuneFest is Jagex's annual kind of fan festival sort of thing that they do for RuneScape players. And reason this is relevant to us is because RuneScape, so RuneScape or RuneScape 3, I guess, if you're a hardcore RuneScape person, because there's been like 3 major releases of RuneScape now, and old school RuneScape, which is RuneScape as it was released or as it existed in 2007, are kind of like the 2 branching paths that the MMORPG has taken. So I don't even know where to start with RuneScape because it's like the craziest thing ever. Like, because this game's been around for 17 years now, which means it holds 3 world records for game development stuff. So it's first of all like the most users of an MMORPG because it's been around so long and it's free to play. Like, I don't remember what the number was, but it was like absolutely like unbelievable when they told it to me. Like the amount of millions and millions of players that have played this game. It's also the MMORPG that has received the most updates, which again, when you're around 17 years, I guess that's like not super surprising. And it's it holds a world record for the most original pieces of music in a video game.
Wow.
So that's pretty neat.
Oh yeah.
We've got a full recap of RuneFest up on the site, like a ton of photos of the event. They basically like built out like a mini kind of like RuneScape world in the convention center with like fake trees and kind of like the
Yeah.
different zones in the world and like people making actual real deal armor and also it's just super cool. The show opened with the London Royal Philharmonic Orchestra playing RuneScape music. The whole thing was just like off the chain. Like I go to we go to a lot of like weird video game events and stuff like that, and I've just never seen anything that like they had to have dumped tons of money into this. Like
Yeah.
the tickets cost um, the equivalent of $200, but there's only 2,000 or so people there, so they definitely spent over the I don't know a few $100,000 or whatever to put all this on. Like it was a full blown out event. It was super cool, but it actually got me pretty into learning about the world of RuneScape. So I I don't know. I don't find RuneScape proper or RuneScape 3 or whatever you want to call it to be that super interesting because just kind of like another MMO in a world filled with
Mm-hmm.
MMOs at this point. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
was going to play like a modern, and not to say that RuneScape is modern by any stretch of the imagination, but if I was going to play like a modern MMO, I would probably just play like World of Warcraft or whatever because it's like what a ton of my friends are still playing and stuff. But so for me personally, old school RuneScape is infinitely more interesting. But and specifically because of the way that they handle updates to the game,
Mm-hmm.
which when I was talking to developers about this, I was like my brain was blowing out the back of my skull. It was like so freaking cool, and I was just like, why is this not a thing that more people are doing? So, old school RuneScape, as I mentioned, is basically a fork of RuneScape as it was in 2007. So it's like super old school, like really low polygon graphics, like the textures, like there basically aren't textures in the game. It's just kind of like different colors and stuff. Because it was
Mm-hmm.
basically it started its life as a browser game, so it
Yeah.
was like very basic. But at the same time, it's like not like it's one of those things that like you if you saw a screenshot of it, you would instantly dismiss it as like I don't know, it's like some old shitty game I don't care about it or whatever. But like this game has like so much depth to it. It is
Mm-hmm.
stupid. I mean, like straight up stupid. Like the stuff you have to do for quests rivals like any RPG I've ever played ever. The skill system is bananas, and everything else. So like as far as like if you're able to overlook kind of like the old school graphics, like the gameplay you'll find in this is probably second to none. I mean, like it is ridiculous. But it makes sense though because it's like a 20-year-old game that they've just like constantly added stuff to,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like imagine if you were like writing a fantasy novel and you just added stuff for 20 years, like it would be crazy, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so the update cycle is the coolest part. So the developers, the way that the game gets updated is the developers pitch ideas to the community through these like unbelievably exhaustive developer blogs of like, here's what we're thinking of adding, like here's how it would work, here's how it would look in the UI, like here's the impacted the projected impact that we think this might have on the game and the in-game economy and like everything you could possibly think of. And
Mm-hmm.
then whereas most games, you would just be like, all right, well, this is coming, the patch day next week, and it might suck, might not. I don't know. Just gotta fucking deal with it. They might nerf my favorite thing, or they might buff this thing I hate, like, whatever. Whereas in RuneScape, every single change in the game needs to be voted on by the player base, and it needs to have a 75% supermajority for something to go through. So it's not like you're going to have these situations where like the player base is split, but it was, like 50.01% wanted something. So it went through. It's like
Mm-hmm.
75% is like a lot. And I feel like, and I mentioned this in the article, it feels like I've fallen pretty deep down the old school RuneScape rabbit hole, but it feels
Mm-hmm.
safe to do that because like I kind of like believe in the process that they've come up with for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm playing like a way or exploiting something that like they want to patch out to fix, and 75% of the players are like, yeah, this is bullshit, it should be changed, or like whatever else, like that seems completely legit and
Yeah.
impossible to argue against, right? Like I don't know.
Well, nowadays we live in a time too where it's like, oh, this company made all these updates that we hate, and now we've got like a change.org petition going to try and
Yeah.
get them to fix it or whatever. And eventually a lot of those people just stop playing the game. So it's kind of safer for everyone to do it this way.
Yeah. So it just seemed really cool. I was, yeah. And the other thing that was really neat to me about this game that I never really kind of thought about until I got talking to people at RuneFest is that, you might look at a game like RuneScape and be like, those graphics totally fucking suck. Like, yeah, I'm not even going to bother with that or whatever. But like the cool thing about a game that's kind of this old and this low spec is that you can play it on absolutely anything. Like if you have a computer that boots up and runs an operating system in 2018 and an internet connection that can connect to anything,
Yeah.
like you can play RuneScape because it was built originally for like shitty old dial up.
Yeah.
So like I was bullshitting with these guys waiting in line for beer actually, saying that like the reason they like it so much is that they're able to play with like their buddies that are like off in Afghanistan or whatever. They have like unbelievably shitty cellular or not cellular but satellite internet that they like have like horrible pings and data limitations or whatever else, and it's like RuneScape uses almost no data, and because it's so old, it is completely fine with like a 1 second ping time, like completely
Yeah.
playable and everything else. Like it just works. So it like allows them to, keep up with their friends that otherwise like you might only be able to like realistically email with or whatever because, they just got like some shitty old Panasonic Toughbook hooked up
Hmm.
to, horrible satellite internet connection. But like that is completely workable for RuneScape. So I don't know. The mobile port itself, I'm kind of curious what people are going to think when it launches because there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of jank to it, but there's definitely a lot of things that are like, you know, could be because it's based on a game that you play with a keyboard and mouse, right? So a lot of like weird UI stuff that they need to work out and all this stuff. So
I kind of feel like the fans of this game are willing to put up with that sort of thing.
yeah, so we'll see. I guess I'm just really curious what people that like have only ever heard about RuneScape and then it comes out on mobile and they download it, if they're gonna be like, this is way too complicated and way too hard. Like I don't know what's going on here
Maybe.
or whatever. So I don't know, but yeah, RuneScape's
I think
coming
if they
out.
have enough of an existing fan base over the last 20 years to have the crazy event that they had, then I doubt they're looking for it to be like some sort of like 100 million seller or anything
Yeah,
like
but
that.
I mean, it could be. The
They
mobile
could be.
audience is huge.
Yeah.
Um, so old school RuneScape's hitting iOS, Google Play on October 30th. I am very, very, very excited for that to happen because I would love to play with more TouchArcade people instead of just bumbling around and hanging out by myself. So last news story I have, just kind of like some pretty interesting rumors coming in on the new iPad. It seems all but confirmed that it's going to be a like very, very, very thin bezel device that has Face ID and all that stuff. So really pretty
Makes
cool.
sense.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I really have gotten into my iPad Pro
Really.
like in a big way, and this is supposed to be like super thin. Um, so they think it's going to have a USB-C port on it instead of Lightning, which I think is an interesting departure if that's actually true.
Would be interesting.
Because does that mean like the next year's iPhones are going to
I
drop Lightning?
I really
That seems
doubt it.
really hard to believe.
I really doubt it. I don't think Apple would have gone through all the headache of switching to a new format just to switch it again a few years later. I mean, Lightning was what, 2012, so
I
the
think
30 pin
before that, right?
connector
Like,
was
wasn't it the iPhone 4,
five, I think. The five, yeah.
5?
Or maybe even 5S. No, I think five.
Hmm.
But yeah, I I don't think that they would do that. I feel like we've just now gotten to the point where all the accessories people had that were 30 pin iPod connector cable stuff now have like, lightning versions of shit. And if they had to go out and buy a different
Well,
dock or whatever, they'd be pretty pissed off.
yeah, that's true, but like at the same time, what I've found to be as much as I complain about the new generation MacBooks, it is really really nice to just be able to like
I love USB-C.
yeah, like charge your
Yeah.
like if you got your Switch charger, just like
Yeah.
plug it in your MacBook, it'll figure
Oh,
it
dude,
out.
if I
It'll
trap,
charge.
I'm not opposed to them getting rid of Lightning. I think it would be great. I just don't think they will.
Yeah.
But if I only had to have like basically one type of cable, I'd be pretty excited about that. So
Yeah. So strong rumors that it won't have a headphone jack, which I
mm,
don't know. I'm kind of used to the iPhone stuff now. Um, the leaks though are from like case manufacturers. There's a cutout for a new what they're calling a smart connector on the back
mm,
of the devices,
mm,
which I'm really curious how this is going to work because I don't know. Like the Windows Surface tablets
mm.
have kind of like their own proprietary connector for like keyboard and touchpad and stuff. So really curious if that's going to be a thing with the new iPad Pro or
I
what.
really think Apple would be smart to try and barge in on the Surface market that's like really closer to a laptop than it is to a
Yeah,
tablet. Because the Surfaces have just been getting better and have a pretty big audience of
that's the
fans now.
thing. Like if I wasn't so into like it's like so irritating
If
to
I
try
didn't
to.
have to run Windows, I'd have a Surface.
Well, I don't even really care about running Windows. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of like, um, I've tried. Like, we mentioned this before on the podcast. Like
Oh, we buy your
when
ass.
you try to like use an Android device as your daily driver, it's like fuck. Like I miss like iCloud stuff, like iMessage and all of my photo stuff, and like this really sucks not having this. And that's kind of
Yeah.
like the Surface pushes all my buttons as like
Yeah.
this seems like an awesome device I would love to have, but like not having iMessage and the Photos app and everything else that I use in the Apple ecosystem is a real deal breaker for me. So
Yeah.
I
Same
don't know.
boat.
I guess we'll see what happens with the iPad Pro. People are expecting a event in October, but I mean we're getting to the point where it's probably gonna have to be like late October if that's gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
It seems to me that Apple would be kind of foolish to miss a holiday release window on
I
these.
don't think they
So
will, but who knows?
gotta be sometime soon. So anyway, running kind of long. Let's talk about Grim Valor, the game we mentioned at the start of the podcast. That was the one that Jared wanted to talk about.
The radicalest game ever. Uh,
Radicalist game ever.
we'd been posting about this one for a while, and it's from the people that made Sortigo and Seuss's, if you remember Seuss's from way back when. But Sortigo was kind of like the main Metroidvania option on mobile, and it's a really really fun game, a really good Metroidvania, and people kind of just knocked it for its graphic style back in the day. It kind of looks like an N64 game actually, but it's a really fun game, and they've kept it. And Seuss's actually, they've kept them both updated over the years. They both have like iPhone 10 support and stuff like that. So anyway, if you've played Sortigo, you'll fire up Grim Valor and it'll instantly feel like you're playing Sortigo because I think they've used like a upgraded version of the engine or something like that. But so more or less what this is it's kind of Metroidvania-ish in that you can revisit areas later and get to areas you couldn't reach before with new powers or whatever. But it's not like a super hardcore. It's more of a side-scrolling action game, and it's definitely got like a Dark Souls sort of vibe. So like everything's really dark fantasy. The music is super good and just kind of foreboding and creepy. And then all the enemies you face are like weird ghoulish like dead knights and stuff, or people swinging maces at you and stuff like that. So it's definitely a far cry from Sortigo, which was like looked like colorful, like I don't know, like I can't think of the character's name right now, but it was
It was
very
just like
cartoony sort of game.
yeah, a cartoonish kind of like
Yeah,
almost like kids game looking thing.
yeah, almost like a Dragon Ball Z or something like that. But so anyway, it's much grittier than that, and then improvement wise, so you definitely can feel right off the bat it feels like Sortigo, but improvement wise, you have a more complex sort of combat system. And there's this really smart sort of like dodge rolling ability that it's almost like a parry where when an enemy's attacking and showing, they'll glow a little red mark above them when they're about to attack you, and you can hit your dodge button um, to like sort of cartwheel past them or whatever, and then you sort of attack them with a basic sort of attack button that kind of works like a Devil May Cry game or something like that. Um, so what happens is that you get into these sort of heated battles with lots of enemies at once and stuff, and you sort of like sixth sense or subconsciously dodge and duck and dive and everything out of the way. And it adds like a really nice fluidity to the combat, but it also isn't overly complex at all. I mean, it's really just the amount of a couple of different buttons. And then later on, you'll actually unlock the ability to do these sort of swipe. You can swipe on the attack button to do these different types of power moves or whatever. And so the combat itself is just really fun. And it's also really hard. You can definitely die at a moment's notice. Some of the enemies have like really powerful attacks that'll kind of get hit twice and all of a sudden you're dead and you're like, what the hell just happened? But it's not as punishing as something like Dark Souls. Like you'll get sent back to your last checkpoint or something like that, but you'll keep kind of like the different soul shards or whatever that act as coins. You'll keep all that stuff, and then there's some different weapons you can come across and you can upgrade them. There's a nice little RPG sort of system. Again, it's all very similar. This feels like the spiritual successor to Sword to Go. So if you played that game, this is very similar to that, but like better in every way, and also with like this cool sort of badass theme. But yeah, controls super well with the virtual buttons, and the combat system's just super fun. It's paid. I think it's $6, and that's it. No in-app crap. And so I don't know. I can't think of a game that I've really enjoyed more in recent times, or one that I keep feeling like I have to come back to.
Oh, I died so close.
That's okay. That's actually an interesting first battle where you fight this overpowered enemy, and then you can either die or you can actually beat him. And either way, you're going to move on in the game. It's sort of designed to kill you, but if you're cunning enough, you can actually beat him.
Do you get anything for beating him?
I think it's slightly different story-wise. I don't think you get a special item or anything like that, but I haven't done it myself. I've just heard that you can do that. But anyway, this game's just badass. Like if you like Sword to Go, or if you just like Dust and Elysian Tale or games like that, spend the $6. You won't regret it. This game, top to bottom, production values are crazy, and yeah, it's just everything I loved about Sword to Go, but better. And Sword to Go is still very awesome. So
spend the $6. You heard it here first. Put that on the back of the box.
The buy of the week.
Buy of the week. Wow.
Yeah.
buy this, and then use any remaining lunch money you have to pre-order Stardew Valley.
That too.
That's the advice of the week.
Yeah.
So with that, I don't know. I think we're going to drive this podcast off a cliff for the weekend. I do have a cool podcast recommendation, though. Like one thing that I've gotten into recently. So this podcast called The Film Reroll, and that's like reroll as in like rerolling dice. Really, really clever premise in that it is. So they take movies as like the basis for a tabletop role-playing game premise. So they use GURPS, which is like Dungeons and Dragons rule sets, but not Dungeons and Dragons universe, more or less. And they play through like so I just listened to a 3-part episode for Jurassic Park where they play through Jurassic Park, and it's cool because like they take the premise of the movie and the characters from the movie and create character sheets from the characters from the movie, but the dice ultimately are like what tell the tale.
Interesting.
So like you can like so for instance, and this is a very minor spoiler, but one of the episodes is on Jumanji. And like, so, when you watch the movie Jumanji, like there's a very specific series of events that have to take place for like, the game to get lost and then picked up like 26 years later, which effectively starts the movie, right? Like when the kids pick up the board game, right? But in the episode of the game, like those specific events don't happen. So like it just keeps going with Alan Parrish and
no way.
I don't remember what his girlfriend's name was, but yeah, like it's completely ridiculous. So the Film Reroll, check it out. It's really good. If you back them on Patreon, I think at like the $5 level or whatever, you get like all the materials they put together, so you could like run those games yourself if you have like a group of friends that are into tabletop role playing games. So check it out. Speaking of Patreon, if you like this podcast, which covers everything from other podcast recommendations to farming techniques to time zones to mobile games to TV show recommendations, movie reviews. What else did we hit this week?
All of it.
I don't know. We've got a Patreon. It's patreon.com/TouchArcade. If you're not into Patreon, totally get it. You can still do a lot to support the podcast and the website by doing your Amazon shopping through toucharcade.com/Amazon. If you want to send us a email for any reason, it's podcast@toucharcade.com. And with that, we will catch you next week on another episode of the Touch Arcade Show. Thanks for listening.